Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Today, I'm very excited to introduce you to our guest. But before I do that, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. Trust is the glue of life. It's the most essential ingredient in effective communication. It's the foundational principle that holds all relationships. Stephen Covey. See, we believe here at Culture Matters, when people read to think, write to develop, listen to hear what is unsaid, and speak to let go, they develop more value for themselves and others. So our purpose of this podcast is to uncover the genius of our guests with the goal to make you, the listener, your curiosity cool, because our vision is that human culture is open, curious, and focused on creating the future. So our mission is to read, write, listen, and speak every single day. It's going to be easy to do that today with Aaron Scott Young, the creator of the Unshackled Life, an entrepreneur for decades, teaching, mentoring, speaking, advising entrepreneurs all over the country, starting painting walls in apartments, to selling a recycle business, to getting in ups and downs of cellular industries we'll unpack today, long before maybe that was a thing, to actually being the chairman of Laughlin Associates, which helps business owners all over the country with their needs around corporations, which we can unpack, to bootstrapping multiple businesses in the millions and having this unshackled life, authoring books. And there's a lot more we can unpack. There's a lot more I want to say, but this is where I need to listen. Aaron, thank you so much for agreeing to do this, my friend. Oh, and shout out to Mike Calhoun for introducing us. God, I already loved him. Now I really, really, really love him. Been a guest a few times on our show. Thank you, Aaron.
Good to be here, Jay. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation because I know you like to go deep. I've done other interviews where it's all the same static questions, which is also okay because you get to compare people's answers to the same question, which is interesting. But also the idea of just having a real conversation is something I'm looking forward to. So thanks for having me on the program.
In the spirit of that, what have you learned in the last few years from putting yourself through this medium, the podcast medium? As you have so much experience speaking in front of audiences and teaching in that way. What are some of your thoughts on this meeting? As you said, you've been on some shows. I've watched you on a couple.
So I've done a lot of podcasts. Excuse me. My podcast has over 100 episodes. So I've interviewed a bunch of people. There's about half of them are monologues, half are interviews. And then, of course, I've been interviewed on all kinds of programs. My experience is one of constant surprise. That's what it is. I'll give you a couple of examples. One is I fairly recently, a couple months ago, got a message over LinkedIn from somebody who I didn't know. And he said, I've been listening to your podcast and I've listened to maybe a dozen episodes or so now. And I want to know more about this whole concept of Unshackled, which is not my core business, right? Mm-hmm. It's a thing that I created because so many business owners ask for advice on how do I have the life, the marriage, the freedom, the wherewithal to do the things I do. And that's a whole story we can maybe get into. But the point is, this guy came to me from the podcast on LinkedIn and said, I'd like to work with you. So that was unexpected.
Wow.
Another time I was emceeing a program. It was a 5-day program. And on day 3, one of the new speaker mentor people in this large business forum came up to me after I broke us from a session to go into breakouts, and I was the MC, and I was a speaker too, but they asked me to MC. And she came up to me and she goes, for the last several days, I've been trying to figure out how I know you. How do I know you? How do I know you? And then it occurred to me as I was getting ready, I was putting on my makeup, getting dressed this morning. She said, I've been binging your podcast, but I didn't put the guy on the podcast and the guy in this program as the same guy until all of a sudden this morning it landed. And so the podcast is one of those things where I have felt, or not felt, I have thought sometimes, I've questioned, is anybody listening? Does anybody really care? Yeah, I saw downloads, but because it's not really transactional,
Mm.
you wonder, do they download it and then don't listen to it, like I've done on some podcasts? Do they listen to it and think that's stupid? Do they download it and tell somebody else about it who then you hear from randomly? I mean, I don't know. So it's a mystery world. I think it's on a tiny scale, probably similar to, I watched a little YouTube clip this morning. It was a joke about George Clooney and his wife Amal, who has all this wild success out in the world of like sort of saving governments and the planet. And they were teasing, Tina Fey was teasing that she's done all these great things. And so of course, George Clooney's getting the Lifetime Achievement Award, right? And I remember George Clooney all the way back from The Facts of Life, which was a TV show on before you were born. And he was just this young guy. And I thought he was working away before he became George Clooney, right?
Wow.
And then you go back and you go, oh, he was in this and he did that. And he was in this little movie and or whatever. But you people work away for a long time in any medium. And then when they get discovered, everybody thinks, oh, wow, I just found this great new podcast. Well, no, I've done 4,000 episodes, but to them, you're new. And that's another thing, I guess, is podcasting reminds me that just because I've told a story a bunch of times doesn't mean that almost anybody's heard it. Because when you're in front of a few hundred people giving a speech and you tell a story, it's different than doing a podcast where maybe you get 10,000 downloads, right? And all those people hear it, and then they share that with their friends. And all of a sudden you realize, I've really actually only touched a tiny percentage of the potential listeners, even on my kind of topic. So don't ever get kind of too big for your britches. You've hardly even scratched the surface.
Wow.
Unless you're Steve Jobs or something, or Walt Disney. You're really not that well known. You're really not that far along. Keep it humble and keep doing your best, which is something I've learned about this program, is that you take this program very seriously. You come prepared and you want the show to be great.
Thanks.
which is evidence of the kind of individual you would be on all things. So anyway, I guess that's what I've learned from podcasting is just because you can't immediately see the result doesn't mean you're not making an impact. And then don't be surprised when the impact comes along that you've been working away on for a long time.
Is it analogous to business in any way that you could unpack? If you think about that
Sure.
out loud, it makes me think of some of the things. Yeah, please, can you elaborate on that?
Stories that I tell now that people go, oh, that's so cool. You even referenced a couple of them, the recycling business, painting apartments, the cellular business, all of that was done. I had done all of it by the time I was 27.
Wow.
Right? I'd done 27, 28, I think 27. And when I tell the stories now, people go, oh, that's so cool. Oh, you started so young. Oh, you sold something early. Oh, you learned how to make money without being there at a job early. And they're impressed by that. And it is impressive in the fact that I learned it was possible to do it at a young age. But I never thought of myself as having a tiger by the tail. I thought of myself as just struggling along, trying to get stuff to work and support my young family and just honor the commitments I'd made to customers and so on. So it sounds really good in retrospect. It's just like George Clooney getting a Lifetime Achievement Award. You look back on these little sitcoms and stuff and you go, oh, he's been doing it forever. But really at the time he was just trying to buy food and make his car payment, right? Just trying to get by. He wasn't getting rich being the fifth banana on Facts of Life, I mean, but later you look back and go, oh, he's had such a varied career. But it's like, well, no, basically we all just struggle along. Then at some point, either by just the fact that we are still alive, and people go, I can't believe you've been doing this for 40 years. Or you have out of 20 failures, you have one good success, and everybody goes, you're amazing. And it just should keep us all humble when we're honest about our history, when we really go, what really happened? Because I certainly have a revisionist history perspective of just picking out the highlights and the happy parts, the successful parts, not all the times that I was freaking out, that I didn't know what I was doing, that I was scared, that I was failing. It's just, well, you fail forward, you fail forward. I love that expression, fail forward. And
how did you get through it?
Yeah. How are you? Is that the question?
I mean,
Yeah.
you're the type of person I talk to. I've got 7 questions because there's so much nuance.
How did I get?
Yeah, the question is, how did you, in those times outside of the revisionist, navigate that adversity?
Revisionist is later. That's after it's over with, and you can write the history the way you want. I'm saying, how do you get through it? I can tell you how I've gotten through it. Which
like key elements in, if you were unpack it, getting through those times where it's just you in the mirror, or could be.
Yeah, I have 2 answers for that. The first one is, because you just gave me a second one that I want to talk about. I cannot overstate the strength and the value and the direction that has been created by being married to the right person. So I've been married 36 years. My wife is an incredibly talented, incredibly brilliant, very successful individual in her own right. She makes great money. She has her own following. She has people that just adore her. And I met her, she was 19, I was 22 when we got married. So we were kids, and we've grown up together. And we both have been striving for more the whole time. Not more money. Wow. Money comes along with it, but more life, more experience, less being stuck in a rut, less being limited by dogma, and more about challenging dogma, right? And that's in everything. That's in how we parent our 4 kids. We have 7 grandkids that we have influence on their lives. We have employees. We have friends all over the world. And what's really important is to know who you are and what you want out of your life, and then surround yourself with people and experiences that are going to be supportive of you being accomplished. So that one's an important thing. Is sorry about the coughing.
Oh, that's all right.
When you asked me how did I get through it, I got through it based on several things. One was having an amazing human being locked arm in arm with going down the path. That was one. 2 is I had parents who told me, I was the oldest of 5 kids. I was the son, followed by 3 sisters in a very conservative family. So basically the sun rose and set on me as far as my parents were concerned. They always told me I was the golden boy. They always told me I was capable. They always told me I was talented. So I believed them, and when things went wrong, I thought, well, that's not who I am. So this is a test. What will I do with this test? What will I do with this experience? How will this be a story someday? Because I'm a big storyteller. What am I going to learn from this? Instead of going, oh no, why does this always happen to me? And I watched even my dad say that from time to time. Why do these things happen to me? And I always thought, that's weird. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who's a very successful therapist. And we were talking about self-perception. And I said, when I was a young boy, about maybe 12, I saw a book, maybe 10. I saw a book. And when I saw the title of the book, I thought, well, duh, of course. I didn't know that it was a psychology book. And I didn't know that it was about relationships and how we interact in the world. The book was called I'm Okay, You're Okay. Very famous psychology book. But I thought, well, of course I'm okay, you're okay. What is that supposed to mean? Of course I'm okay. Of course you're okay. So when you're approaching the world from that perspective, it's easier to get through almost anything. Like, I'm okay, I'm good. This is hard. I'm a little scared. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm alive. I'm still breathing. I'm still moving. So I'm going to do it. This is hard. Somebody's going to do it. Why shouldn't it be me? right? That's always kind of been my perspective on things. So I have been, the hardest thing for me isn't about doing stuff. The hardest thing for me has been trying to figure out, and I'm still working on it at 58, still trying to figure out, who am I in all these experiences? How am I perceived? Do I like how I'm being perceived? And am I worthy of whatever people are telling me? And my wife has reminded me over and over again, if you will accept who everybody tells you you are, you will accomplish more, you'll touch more people, you'll make more money, you'll do more interesting things. So part of it for me has been being raised in a culture where you're supposed to be humble and you're not supposed to puff yourself up or overstate. Even like I started this interview by going, oh, don't make a big thing of the early stuff, right? That's all part of this this programmed humility. And you can be humble, to me, is teachable, not meek. And I've always been humble, but I've also tried to not be braggadocious. And part of, you can go too far on that. I hope your listeners listen to this thing. You can go too far on that. You can go to the point where you start to discount yourself. You start to, as the Bible would say, put your light under a bushel. You stop being, and then people get confused. My wife was explaining this to me yesterday. Said when you appear to be powerful and then you act weak, people get confused, and people want to follow you. So if you start going, "Oh, I'm not that great," people will then be confused and won't know what to do. And so you don't have to say, "I am great." You can just say, "I know the way. I know the path. Let's go." You don't have to show off, but you can be affirmative, and you can say what it is, and you can state what your excellence or expertise is, and you can do it without doing it in a way that would be what's the word? Is such a great word. It's escaping me right now. It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, it's basically saying I'm good by you being bad. It's and there's a great word, and it'll come to me somewhere in the interview, and I'll blurt it out in the middle of nothing. No, everybody will go, what is he? Why did he say that word? But it'll come back out when I'm not trying to pull it up. It's an unusual word.
That idea of I'm good, you need to be bad.
I don't have to be bad
a little bit.
Well, yeah, I don't have to beat
like how that manifests in businesses that you've seen even. Yeah,
I don't have to defeat you for me to succeed. And even though I'm not doggedly connected to win-win, because some people just want to lose. Some people want to fight. Some people want to fight. In which case, if they want to fight, then you should beat them. You should just win. But if you're doing deals, if you're trying to make things work, enmity is the word. Enmity.
What? Enmity. Wow.
Enmity means I succeed by your failure. I'm good by making you bad. The only way I can be a winner is by you being a loser. And that's not true. But enmity is a powerful, underused word.
What does that do to cultures in your experience?
To build a good, okay, so in Unshackled Owner, I'm sure in your teaching, we talk a lot about building an intentional culture based on your values, what you stand for, and what you stand against. And when you don't intentionally build a culture in any sort of community, could be business, could be church, could be family, could be friends, could be, whatever, your book club. If you are building a culture, if you are doing something, if you bring people together, a culture will emerge. And so is it going to be organic or intentional? If it's organic, it will almost always go to the lowest common denominator and be more snipey, negative, gossipy, bickery than if you say, here's who we are, here's what we stand for, here's what we stand against, this is how we treat one another. People ask me all the time why we have such long tenure in our business. And it's because we have a very intentional culture based on if somebody's having an issue, if somebody's in a bad mood, if somebody's looks stressed, you ask the question, is there anything you would like me to do? Do you need something? Is there anything you'd like me to do? To ask a question in our marriage, if my wife seems upset and I just go, oh, she's in a crappy mood, I wonder what's up with her. That's different than if I say, hey, what's happening for you right now? What's going on for you? And in our marriage, we found out years ago, there's a whole book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus by John Gray, that the whole idea is that men and women approach things differently. And so I learned by being taught by her. I didn't figure it out by myself. I was listening, being humble and listening, teachable. And when she would come with an issue, I learned to say, is this a poor baby moment? Is this let's solve the problem? Is this I'm really angry in your favor? Like that person's a jerk. Like, what is it you want from me right now? Do you want me to solve the problem? Do you want me to just comfort you? Do you want me to get mad with you? What is it? And that improved our marriage a lot, because most men go right into problem solving mode, or saying that's not really a problem. Here, let me show you. And that's a man thing, a masculine. Women do it too, but it's more of a masculine than a feminine thing. Feminine tend to be more caregivers. Men tend to be more immediate, laser focused problem solvers. There's lots of studies that show most men can only do one thing at a time. They can only consider one idea at a time. Women can consider lots of things and how they all connect to each other. And so sometimes men and women have a hard time understanding each other, because like, how can you just sit there and watch that football game and not notice all the chaos around you? Oh, is there chaos? I didn't even notice. Just watching the game, So anyway, I've kind of gone off on a tangent. The bottom line
What
is,
was it about you that you think or I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt.
Culturally, when we can, and this is something I still struggle with, I'm still working on, but the more we can become conscious that just because we're in a situation and we're noticing something doesn't mean the person next to us is interpreting it the same way. And this is the part I'm really struggling still and working on every day, is to get out of my world and consider somebody else's world, your world, my wife's world, my partner's world, my employee's world, and then look and go, hey, what's going on for you? You seem unhappy. What's happening? Have I done something? Is something else going on? Is there something you'd like me to do? Those kinds of conscious awareness of those around us, and with the goal of keeping everybody friendly, has been really important in the business activities over these last 40 years. How do we build a place where people want to be, where they feel safe, where they can do their best work without being locked into all kinds of weird social or political games going on? Just how do you get great people in, give them exactly what you need them to accomplish, then let them be great at what they do, and make sure that everybody's being nice, not nice, being polite, kind, thoughtful. You don't have to be friends, but you do need to be respectful, Do
you think that in your experience and that conscious awareness of others brushes up against or almost contradicts some of the necessary ingredients of starting the starter of a business, like the founder of a business?
I think I know what you're asking, but I'd like you to ask me in a simpler way. I think I know exactly what are you saying, because to start something, sometimes you have to be single-minded and driven and just get it done kind of thing, because things are urgent. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So if what you just said, are those some of the elements of the starter of the business, or in its more infancy stage, what you just said, like that driven and single-mindedness, are those some of the values or behavioral types that you've seen necessary in the beginning? It seems as though then that conflicts with the conscious awareness, and like how it just came to me as you were talking.
So I think what you're saying is, from your experience, early stage companies or early stage anything, there is an urgency, a stress, people may not understand the vision, so you need to just push it forward. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. Have you seen that as a pattern of experience in the early stages of a business? And then if so, how does that contradict, or does that contradict the idea of having this conscious awareness of others?
I think most people never really consider others very much. And so I would say that if you want to start up to have the greatest chance of success, make sure that the founder isn't so quote unquote right about everything, isn't so the explicit bearer of the torch, or not about the exclusive, not well explicit too, but exclusive bearer of the torch. If you're going to bring people into your vision, the best thing you can do to succeed is explain exactly the outcome you need from them. I'm bringing you on to achieve, not to do a job, not to be VP of marketing, but to achieve a specific outcome. Here's where we're going. Here's the outcome I need from you. I'm hiring you because you're the best person I can afford. And now go do it. And so, no, I think that we have seen lots of evidence of what you described, which I think is immaturity on the part of the founder.
Do you think that can people become mature when they're in control? And then, have you seen?
Well, of course they can. There's a reason why most people that I've ever met who have built businesses, I don't mean they've done well in the stock market or they've been, a great real estate flipper. They've made a lot of money in crypto. I don't mean sort of self-employed, small, but highly effective financially. But I'm talking about people who've built businesses with teams of people. My experience is that most people who have success and that get a lot of interviews and get a lot of, they've knocked it out of the park on something, right? They never repeat it. They never have that success again. It's very rare to find somebody who can consistently be successful. I don't mean every single thing they try is successful. Sir Richard Branson wrote a book about a couple of 100 different businesses that he attached his money or the name Virgin to that didn't work. So when we hear about the ones that did work, we go, oh, Richard Branson, Necker Island, you're a god, right? But no, he's just a guy who kept working a formula and it didn't always work, but he had a whole bunch of successes. My youngest son right now he lives on the internet. He makes his living on the internet. He's 24 years old. He's a brilliant guy. He's actually, he's Mensa. He's a genius. He's a member of Mensa.
Wow.
I could tell you all about Chase Young, who's an amazing guy. But the point is, he doesn't like Elon Musk. He thinks Elon Musk is like one of the old robber barons, like a Rockefeller or a Vanderbilt or whatever. Because he has too much control. And Chase, at his age and in his experience with who he shares opinions with, nobody should have a disproportionate amount of wealth or power like Elon Musk. I see it differently. I think if somebody can keep bringing value to the marketplace and the market keeps rewarding them for what they've done, whether it's PayPal, whether it's Tesla, whether it's all the batteries and stuff that Tesla batteries are now being used for wind power and all kinds of other things, or it's sending rockets to the moon. I was born in 1964. I remember the Apollo missions. Here's what I remember. Those rockets would go up, whether they were going to go all the way to the moon or they're going to orbit the moon or they're going to orbit the Earth, they'd go up and then they'd crash land into the ocean at the end. Elon Musk designed rockets that go up, deliver their payload, and land right where they took off from. And then they reuse it. I mean, to me, that's a miracle. I've watched multiple of these launches, and I think, why shouldn't we reward this guy? Why shouldn't he be one of the top 2 or 3 wealthiest people on the planet, depending on his stock price, right? I mean, why not? he's bringing tremendous value. So if somebody wants to gripe about it, I would have them look inside themselves a little bit and say, maybe they don't want to trust them. Maybe they think they have too much power. Maybe we've seen too many James Bond movies, where the rich guy has some nefarious goals. And maybe they do. And maybe they don't. Maybe they see a different world than the rank and file.
Do you think part of Elon's secret sauce is he decides when people need to leave? And then what, or do you have thoughts around that? I don't know how much do you study him? Because
I don't study him. I don't really study anybody, really. There are people like Henry Ford, and Henry Ford's been a fascination for me for years because he was the 9th wealthiest person to ever walk the planet. He was considered to be too stupid to be that rich. Really? Nobody thought he was smart enough to be that. Oh, he was finally brought in. They ended up in a people were besmirching him in such a way, and he was pushing back. And there was, I can't remember what it was, but it was like a libel or there was some sort of a civil case. He got brought in by a newspaper, I think, and they wanted to show how dumb he was. And he was questioned on the witness stand for several days. And they asked him about philosophy and about world economics and about religion and about all kinds of politics and all kinds of stuff, trying to show how silly or dumb this guy was. There's got to be a trick. He's got to be somehow he shouldn't wield this much financial power. His cars shouldn't be almost every car on the road. He shouldn't have this whole vertically integrated thing where he has the rubber plantations in South America, making the rubber to make the tires with his buddy, Harvey Firestone. He shouldn't control the whole process. He just shouldn't. He was Elon Musk, right? He was Bill Gates
of the era.
He was Steve Jobs of the era. He was John D. Rockefeller at the same time, with Standard Oil to power all those cars. So he was on the witness stand and they were just beating him down. And finally he said, I'm not the smartest, but I surround myself with competent people. And he went on to say, on my desk, there's a row of electronic switches. And if I can flip any one of those switches and be connected to the top authority on almost any subject and get an answer on something. And I've always loved that because there's no fantasy of being somehow some demigod that just is more all-knowing than somebody else. It's just somebody who did something. I mean, he had 7 failed companies before Ford Motor Company. Wow. And that's just tenacity. That's just audacity, right? That's just getting up every day and continuing with cool ideas and not deciding that, well, I had a failure, I better go get some kind of a job in some kind of shop somewhere. If you are an entrepreneur, many people who make money on their own are not entrepreneurial. I meet people all the time who are financially successful by their own effort, but that does not make them an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs build things beyond themselves, in my opinion. And if you are a true entrepreneur, you can't stop thinking about it. As a matter of fact, most true entrepreneurs are terribly unsuccessful. They never get their many brilliant ideas off the ground because they don't have the money, they don't have the support, they don't trust other people. Culturally, to bring it back to the theme of this program, culturally, they're insecure enough that they won't let themselves act, right? The average income, according to the last census, of somebody who called themselves self-employed or a business owner, the average take-home pay, actually it wasn't average, it was median. The median take-home pay, so remember there's as many above as below, $24,000 a year.
Wait, what'd you say, a month?
No, yeah, exactly. A day? What? Yeah, 24,000 a year. So that goes to show you that a lot of people who are trying to do it are either wildly unsuccessful or they're claiming something that they don't have a natural aptitude for. Because if you're a real entrepreneur, you can't help but just keep going. Like Henry Ford, like Richard Branson, like Elon Musk, like all these people. They all try stuff. I mean, I remember when Amazon first started, I think Jeff Bezos and I are about the same age. I was a young vice president of sales of a public company, you know, a multinational financial services business. And I was reading about this guy up in Seattle. I was in Portland. He was just 3 hours up the road. And he had a banner behind his little one-room office that said Amazon on it. And they were selling used textbooks, right? But he wrote a mission statement that said, we're going to be the platform upon which everyone in the world can find or discover, check out those words, find or discover anything they want to buy online. He had that mission in his mind clear back then, where anyone in the world can find or discover anything they want to buy online. That is tenacious and it's audacious, and I'm starting with used textbooks because that's my entree, but I'm not going to stay there. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep adding. I'm going to do new textbooks. I'm going to do books. I'm going to do, and pretty soon you're buying food at, Whole Foods from him.
What do you think the discover piece was?
Because when you get on and start looking for what you're think about the whole concept behind Netflix or YouTube, right? They start feeding you stuff, or in your search, if I go to search for a Cartier watch, by default, I'm going to see something about a Rolex watch or a JJ LeCour watch or a Timex watch. I'm going to see something so I can find what I'm looking for or discover. And you could do that on Amazon. If you start flipping on Amazon, I just bought these, your audience won't see it, but these little wireless, it's an even smaller lanyard microphone that I can use out on locations to interview people and so on. Well, I knew somebody told me about that, so I searched for it. But then it showed me the charging cords. It showed me the lanyards you can buy to go with it. It showed me the software you could use with it. It showed me the SD cards that go in it. I could find or discover anything I want to buy online. Well, you have to have, I'm a big fan of, and this helps build you a culture, is to define what you're doing, define the world-class problem that you're solving, and then what your world-class solution is. So if I say to me and to my team, okay, I'm a plumber, you're a plumber, we have a plumbing business, there's 3 trucks or vans out there, we're going to go plunge toilets all day, we're going to fix somebody's drippy faucet or whatever, we're going to fix the broken pipe. Okay. That doesn't sound particularly exciting or culturally interesting. If I say, water is the most critical, life-giving, scarce resource on this planet, fresh, clean water is our most necessary and valuable commodity. What we do, and if we don't manage our water supply with the ever-expanding people, if we continue to allow waste, we may find ourselves very thirsty someday, or boiling our water or whatever. So what our company does is we ensure that our clients' homes, businesses, commercial buildings, and so on have the best possible mechanics to preserve water, to not waste water, to have clean water. So when they turn on the tap, they can trust it to drink it. So it's not being dripped away or wasted away into the sewer where it's taking away from the reserves for everybody else. We're going to do our part in saving the planet by making sure that all these buildings are water efficient and the water's pure. That's a world-class problem and our world-class solution. And what happens if we don't solve it? And here's our solution. People can get behind a world-class solution to a big problem. We see in the younger generation now, if you're under 35 years old, we know statistically that people are more interested in mission-driven jobs. They'll work for cheap or free for something that's got a great mission versus being paid more to work at something they don't believe in. And so the more we as entrepreneurs can build a culture around doing something, there's a reason we're doing it. We're going somewhere. I know the path, come with me and we will accomplish this together, right? The more mission driven, the more supportive of individuals' unique superpowers that they come with, the gifts that you or anybody else that, is on a team, the more you're able to flex those and leverage those and have a say in how you spend your day accomplishing my company's vision, the happier you're going to be. The more people believe they have a voice, the more they see that the owners act on ideas by the team, the more that people are recognized for individual accomplishment and group accomplishment, the more collaborative they become, the more trusting they become, the more they say, I've never had a job like this before. I love this because I get a say in what I'm doing. People care about my thoughts. I'm not just a cog in a gear, in the wheels and machinery. I'm saying a lot of stuff. I'm not real. I guess I'm finding myself being broadly philosophical without being focused on specific answers. So if you want to do,
welcome to the Culture Matters podcast. Eric.
All right,
Scott Young. Let's talk about some of the things not to do as an entrepreneur. In contrast to some of these insights that you've articulated of what will help an entrepreneur listening to this. And our audience is a lot of philosophical entrepreneurs. So what are some of the no-nos in your experience?
The biggest no-no, the overarching, undergirding no-no is don't keep doing something that's not working. So many entrepreneurs they've created a vision in their mind. I'm going to use one and I'm not trying to pick on this woman that talked to me years ago, but I remember thinking, I don't get it. Okay. She was a single lady. I don't know that she'd ever been married. She was not, classically beautiful. She'd had a cat that she believed that she had a very a deep relationship with this cat. And then after years, the cat died. And she believed that the cat, and maybe did, still was talking to her. And she wanted to start a business, kind of like a cat psychic business, where she was going to use her cat to sort of communicate with your cat. And because she could speak to her cat, the cat could speak Kitty to somebody else's cat, find out if the cat's sick, if the cat's unhappy, if the cat's, feeling, left alone or abandoned or something, not getting its love that it needs. She could channel that back from her cat and communicate to you, here's a solution. She'd written a book about it. And she couldn't understand why nobody was biting. Nobody was hiring her. Nobody wanted to buy her book. And people often looked at her strangely, right? Now, here's the thing. I think, first of all, there's a market for it because people are I've raised animals for a long time. We've had a farm for a long time, or a ranch, I guess, because it's all animals, not food. We've bred lots of animals. We've butchered lots of animals. Animals die for just whatever reason, And so I'm a little bit, I'm a good steward of our animal assets and friends, but they're not people, right? They're animals and they're livestock to me. So I'm often confused by the level of these are my fur babies. These are my children. I'm not making fun of it. I'm saying I don't understand. I understand people getting a tremendous amount of comfort and love and not being lonely because they have a pet. we have pets. We like our pets too. We like to have the dog jump up on the couch. We like to, reach down and pet that nice, warm, loving body that looks up and smiles and wags its tail. I love all that, but it's not my children or grandchildren, right? It's just not the same. And so I think there would have been a market for what she did if she could have done it in a way that wasn't quite so, I'm hesitant to put any words associated to that people could feel more comfortable and more included in, that it was more for them and not just for her. And so a second big no-no is doing something stupid, like that nobody wants to buy. You're committed to it, but nobody wants it. And at some point, if nobody does it for like a long time, and you've tried everything you can think of, you may want to consider nobody wants this thing. Nobody wants it.
Just can't
So
stop
stop.
thinking about like the Crazy Cat Lady podcast where she tells stories from the cat or something.
Well, I'm telling you, there's a potential market, but then the question would be, would it be taken seriously amongst the paranormal community,
I just got a little
amongst the
lightheaded.
psychology community, amongst the pet community, or would it be crazy everywhere? So it's I don't, or would it just be entertaining like a joke?
What would you say could be some tangible outcomes? Someone's listening to this right now they're in the throes of this business. Maybe they're starting it while having a high-paying career, so they have that pride from an intellect or experience or a competence, and it's bridging over to this new business. What are some outputs of that business that they could maybe have a self-awareness exercise and say, maybe I just need another job, or this business is going to work? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a great question. So first of all, I have advised people in both directions. I've told people who had an entrepreneurial business that, in my opinion, when they've come to me and paid me and said, what do I, it's not working, I'm not happy, what's going on? And after a little interview, I'll go, I think you should close that business and go get a job and go back and be home with your family, because you're not good at this. You're not happy with it. Your marriage is falling apart. Your children don't remember who you look like, and you're broke. So these are good evidences that you suck at this. So stop it. There's no
That must
shame.
go over well.
There's no shame in that. There's no shame in that. Well, I had a guy schedule time with me just a couple of days ago, and he's a guy in my mastermind group. We've hired him and his company to do some stuff for us. He's very good at what his industry is, and he has this other side thing he's trying to start. And so he booked time with me, and I asked a bunch of questions, and I started saying, okay, I know nothing about this industry. I know nothing about what you've already done, but let me just sort of download some things that I would do to approach this circumstance you're in. And everything I said, he's like, yeah, well, or, oh, this, or, you know what? And then after about the third time, I said, you're the one that asked for this phone call, and you're the one that's hired me for help. Now, every time you tell me that my idea is misguided, or you've tried it, or it wouldn't work, it makes me think, why does he want to talk to me? I must be too stupid to have a good idea. And so I said, if you think you're smarter than me on these things, which you have no evidence to demonstrate, you're unsuccessful. So I said, maybe, if you don't want to talk to me about this, or if you don't like my ideas, write them down and don't tell me you don't like the ideas, because every time you discourage me, I want to share less with you. And he goes, and I said, if you think your ideas are better than mine, even though you haven't sold one unit yet, it suggests to me that maybe you should get a different advisor. He goes, no, that's not what I'm saying. I said, then let me ask you some questions. Have you actually done this? Have you actually done this? Have you actually done this? And he's like, no. I said, then just quit telling me it won't work, because you haven't done the work yet. And I am successful, and I have done things like this. And the fact that you are nervous or something is not evidence of my inability to advise you. And he goes, wow, tough love. I said, it is tough love, because you're sucking at this and I've made money at it. So you came to me, I'm trying to give you my best stuff, and you keep telling me why I'm wrong. So either don't talk to me or shut up and listen. I'm that hard on people. I will say that. I'll say, what I said, I was on with a hedge fund about a year ago. 3 partners in a hedge fund. They had raised millions and millions of dollars and they bought all this real estate, but they were struggling, and they paid me $2,000 an hour to talk on the phone. And after about an hour of listening, and I asked probing questions, and I listened, and I took notes, and I listened. And they said, so what is your counsel? I said, stop doing it. And they said, what do you mean? I said, stop the hedge fund, close the hedge fund. What are you talking about? We have all these investors. We have all this real estate. We've been doing this for 5 years. I'm like, are you making money? No. Are your investors happy? No. Do you guys get along? No. Do you see that the market's going to wildly change in your favor? No. Okay, so stop it. Stop doing it. It's no longer a good idea. Maybe it was never a good idea. You 3 shouldn't even be working together. And you know what they did? They sold all the real estate. They returned the money to the investors. One of the 3 people actually died since that conversation, but the other 2 have gone off and have been succeeding in other things because they got rid of the stupid thing that was chewing up all their time, energy, stress, reputation. They stopped doing the thing that didn't work. And Brian Tracy, I don't know if you know who Brian Tracy is, but he's a longtime associate of mine. And he quotes this Turkish proverb that says, no matter how far you go down the wrong road, turn back. And people go, but I'm making such good time. But you're on the wrong road, dummy. Come on. Do
you think that's one of the values of having advisory? Because of course, self-deceit would have to presuppose the idea in a sense. So that stick-to-itiveness or that certainty of that idea would come before the yeah. So anyway, my question is,
how many people just keep going into bad situations over and over and over and over again in any facet of life? They just keep repeating the same stupid mistakes. You hear that I'm not very gentle in some of the things I say. I'm actually a super nice guy, but it's like, come on, guys. Why do you keep beating your head against that wall with nails sticking out of it? Like, why are you doing it? Stop doing what doesn't work. When you ask me what are no-nos, I'm saying stop doing what doesn't work. Now, that doesn't mean work through problems. That doesn't mean it's all going to work the first moment. The other thing is, I love the story about who is it? Corningware, Corning Glass. Corning Glass made something called Corningware for years and years. It was a special kind of glass cookware. When I grew up, everybody had Corningware. Every house had a couple of things because you could put it on the stove, you could put it in the oven. It was pretty. You could put it on the table. It was great. Well, the leadership of Corning Glass came to the board of directors and said, we have all these foreign knockoffs of what's happening. Our prices are dramatically higher than the knockoffs, which are now making their way into Walmarts and so on. And based on the market share loss that we're experiencing, we're going to be basically out of business in 9 months. Huge company. So the president went to all the leadership and said, okay, I need you to come back in like 3 days with what can we do with the supplies we have on hand, the machinery we have, the team that we have, what else can we make besides cookware? What else can we do? And this was in the 90s. They came back and they said, we can make these hair-sized long strands of glass. We can extrude this glass out. And there just happened to be something that was needed right then called fiber optic cable. So they became the #1 manufacturer of fiber optic cable.
Wow.
Out of fear of going out of business with the glass or the cookware. They now have something else that we're quite familiar with on all of our cell phones, Gorilla Glass. is made by them, because they've adopted a methodology now where they, every year or two, they go back through the exercise. What else can we make with the stuff we have? So sometimes you start down a path and the path works for a while, and then you need to reimagine what you can do with yourself. Or you start down a path and it doesn't work. Another example is a dear friend of mine, Harvard Business School, one of the guys that created WebMD, and he started this other company. And I won't say it because it's still very much out there and used in schools all over the country, his product or his software. But he had this idea. He told me about the idea. He said, what do you think of the idea? I said, I think it's a bad idea. I think it sounds like a great idea, but it involves too much effort on the part of the teacher, the parents, and the student of these young kids. And parents are tired, teachers are overworked, underpaid, kids don't care about their homework for the most part, So even though building this environment is sort of utopian and cool, I don't think it'll work. Well, they raised a lot of money. They hired a whole bunch of people. They went about trying to sell it. It didn't work. And one night, my friend and I were walking the sidewalks of downtown Portland as he was letting me know that the next day he was going to have to lay off like 95% of the people. The idea hadn't worked. So we were talking another day because he said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've got all this investor money. I can't just default on all. I got to figure something out. And in the discussions, and I'm not saying I came up with this on my own, but we talked about it. And I said, the challenge that I see for you, this is reinventing, right? The challenge I see for you. So he had an idea that sounded cool, that everybody on all this think tank got together and thought it was cool. Think right now, think Mark Zuckerberg and Meta. Meta's not working because like 6 people in Silicon Valley thought it was really cool to live in the virtual world. But most of us don't care at all about that. We just want Facebook, right? We don't know what NFTs are. We don't want a billboard inside of somebody's virtual reality goggles. We don't care about it. Now, maybe someday it'll be a thing. Maybe it'll be a new gold rush. But right now, people aren't ready for it. Okay. So back to this friend of mine, we were talking and I said, if it were me, since you're involved in the education space, schools, which are so controlled by politics and by unions, if it were me, I would be looking for something that's been mandated in some district, in some state, maybe by the federal government. Something's been mandated and there's no way to meet the mandate and then fill that gap.
Wow.
Which they did. They found it in Texas. Texas had passed a law that said kindergartners or first graders, something, had to know how to use a keyboard and a mouse. So they built a product that would teach kids how to use a computer, basically, in a simplistic way. And eventually how to look at a spreadsheet or make a spreadsheet or how to do a Word document or whatever. They weren't specific to like Microsoft Word. Just how do you use this thing? They take the general test. The software discovers what each kid needs more of. It feeds that back to the teacher. They can do specialized training so that the whole class rises up to meet the mandate, right? So then they went and tried to sell it in neighboring states and nobody wanted to buy it because there was no mandate.
Wow.
Right? So they became very successful in a couple of states, really crazy, but talk about tail wagging the dog, right? Their whole company's based on, does this stay a rule in this place?
Scary.
You're talking about tens of millions of dollars every year. And what if they change their mind or go, we've figured it out now, we don't need this anymore. So they tried other things. So that was computers. They tried a reading program. They tried a science program. They tried a math program. Nobody was really buying it. Even their great advocates for the original product were like, oh, we don't need that. We have it in our textbooks. And we're required to use these textbooks. We're required to use the textbooks. We didn't have a solution for the keyboard. We have textbooks, right, that we're obligated to use. So one day he and I were at lunch and we got talking and he said, we've built this great platform to deliver all this content. And I said, well, the analogy to that would be iTunes, where you have all these people putting their songs up and for 99 cents, you can download it. And I said, could you do anything like that? And he goes, we could. And he ran with it, and they built out this whole big platform. And guess what? They became successful for the platform, not for the products they were trying to develop to sell on the platform. All of a sudden, every teacher in the whole world could put their content onto this platform, and then other teachers could choose to buy it for 99 cents.
Wow.
And build lesson plans around this whole, enormous, library at Alexandria sort of endless resource online. So that's a way of sometimes you just keep at something, because if you look at it from a different angle, you may still be able to do it, like Corning Glass did, like this software company did. And sometimes you stop, like the hedge fund. And some people, most of the really unsuccessful ones, and that lose credibility every single week, are the cat lady ones, who just keep pushing some agenda that they don't care what anybody else thinks. It's their agenda. They're doing it because they believe. To be successful in the free market, you have to find something people want to buy. Out of your success, how many times have we heard this? Out of the overflow, we can do our pet projects, we can do our charitable projects, we can do our family, stuff, we can do whatever. But first and foremost, in a free market, you have to provide a good or service that people want, so they buy it from you, so that you can make money and keep doing it, right? And so sometimes it's not another story. When I was a kid, there was maybe a 20-year-old, there was a show called Down and Out in Beverly Hills, a movie starring Richard Dreyfuss and Bette Midler and Nick Nolte. And Nick Nolte was this homeless guy that this millionaire in a convertible Rolls tries to help, and the guy ends up coming and living in the pool house and changes their whole family, right? This homeless
Really?
guy, Nolte, yeah. But the point is, the guy in the Rolls Royce with the big mansion in Beverly Hills, you know how he made his millions? He had a factory that made wire clothes hangers for dry cleaners. About the least sexy thing in the world. We make cheap wire clothing hangers that we sell to dry cleaners all over the place. That's how he got rich.
Wow.
Now, he could do everything else he wanted because he offered something to the market that they needed. They needed wire clothes hangers, and he made millions doing it. And then he could live in the house, drive the car, help the homeless guy become a new man, because he had time. He had time to listen to the new guy's philosophy.
What did the homeless guy teach him?
Just about enjoying life, about enjoying sex, about enjoying relationships, about not being so stressed out, about how fleeting worldly goods are. It wasn't going all Buddhist, although it kind of was, because that guy enjoyed getting dressed up and living in a nice house and having good food too, but he was no respecter of persons. In other words, the millionaire benefactor and the housekeeper were of equal importance to him. The children were of equal importance to the parents. Everybody was just a person to that guy.
To Nick Nolte's character?
To Nick Nolte's character, yeah.
Wow, that's a profound story based on this conversation, I think.
Down and Out in Beverly Hills.
How you've asked lots of questions. How important is it to ask questions when you're running a business, in your view?
So I've built a whole career on here's what I know about me. I have big ideas. I come up with ideas. I meet people. I learn about a lot of things. If you look at Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, they both say they read 6 to 8 hours a day. So the more you can be out of the fray, and it's the whole idea behind the Unshackled program is, how can you be the chairman of the company, not the president of the company? How do you direct the business without being the most critical employee in the business? So I'm a big believer in having a lot of ideas, surrounding myself with really smart people, getting their perspective on these ideas, and then based on learning as much as I can, or getting as much input as I can, to go, is this viable? Is it not? Does it sound really fun, or is it actually useful? I get a lot of counsel from people, and then I make a decision. And my VP that works with our affiliates and our marketing team, said to me the other day, just that thing. She said, it used to be very confusing 20 years ago when we started working together, because you would come up with all these ideas, you'd ask all these questions, you'd read stuff, you'd come back with quotes, you'd come back with sketches of idea, how we could do it. You'd ask a lot of questions and then it would just disappear. It would just go away. It's like, where did that idea go? And she said, I've come to learn you're just trying to figure out which things to pursue. So you ask questions, you ask for input, you ask for us to take a minute and look at something, consider it, and then you make a decision. And she said, in some ways, it would be much easier if you would just make a decision quickly instead of us working on a bunch of things that we're not going to do. But on the other hand, she said, I love the fact that you seek all of our counsel. You want to hear our input from our different perspectives. You consider our budgets. You consider everything that we talk about when you're exploring an idea. So for me, it's critically important that you don't exclusively keep your own counsel as the leader. Because it's highly likely there's a lot of stuff you don't know anything about. And as you start down any particular path, you're going to almost immediately need experts on something. Right?
Was there a time where you didn't have that in your corner? And if so, what were some of the?
No. No. From the beginning, from when I was barely just getting ready to turn 19, we started the recycling business. The guy that I started it with, who was a little bit older than me, he'd been on a mission for the Mormon church. And we sat there and we kind of reasoned out what neighborhoods are we going to cover? Who's going to probably take the newspaper? Because back then there was no recycling at with the garbage company. So people had basements full of musty old newspapers. And at the time, newspaper was selling for about $60 a ton. So for every ton of newspaper we got out of your basement, we could get $60 minus our gas, right? And we were just young. We did it in the summertime, so we were out of school. I went to 1 year of college. He'd been to a year of college, had gone on a Mormon mission, had come back, gone to another year of college. We started this in that summer. We actually I started it in the winter, middle of school, and just not in an organized way. Just I knew that I could make some money picking up newspapers. But he came back and we mapped out the city based on our experience of the city. He created a route book based on his missionary route book of here's an address, what's the circumstance at that place, so that we could break down the entire city of Portland into these books that we could put in our pocket and walk down a street and know we're supposed to go to this house. We're not supposed to go to this house. This house was empty, for sale last time we were here. Let's knock on the door. Let's leave a flyer, right? So I had somebody who had experience, and we leveraged the experience, and then we iterated on the experience. Then when I left on a Mormon mission, because I grew up in the Mormon church, the business continued to run with a person that was not an owner that filled my seat. We had a second truck with 2 more guys, and I could make money even though I wasn't there. That was a fluke that at 19 and 20 years old, I learned that if you organize yourself properly, you can go away for a couple of years and it still works and you still make money, even if you're not physically lifting the newspapers. And that translated into the cellular phone business where we had multiple locations. I couldn't be looking down everybody's, over their shoulder all the time. So I had to devise programs where they could work, we could know what was going on, and we could make adjustments as needed. And then that morphed at 29 into 350 offices, big board NASDAQ, talk about a lot of things to organize. So I learned a quote when I was a young kid, maybe 4th or 5th grade. And it stuck with me then. And I think it is an inherent part of my personality that I said, the quote was, if you have a difficult task, give it to a lazy man, he'll find an easier way to do it. And that's been my whole life, is like, why are we making this hard? Like, let's boil it down to the simplest elements and then get smart people to do the things. I'm only smart at certain things. Like I'm not a great finisher. I'm not a great detail guy. I'm terrible with spreadsheets. I can read financial statements and make decisions. But if you ask me to create a chart of accounts, I suck. If you ask me to balance my checkbook, I suck. Anything like that, that's fine details, I'm not good at it.
How important is it to know what you are strong at, what you are maybe incapable of, and just make that discernment as a business owner?
I learned a long time ago, and I've adopted this thing when I work with business owners, whether they're entrepreneurs or they're, hired in a bigger enterprise company. When they want guidance and help, the place that we start is these three things. What are you great at? What do you suck at? What do you not want me to know about you as a leader? So if somebody's paying you $25,000 to have this conversation, and you say, what are you great at? What do you suck at? What do you most not want to admit about yourself, about being a leader? And then I don't care who they are, they get emotional, they get freaked out, it breaks them down. What are you great at? What do you suck at? We know you suck at something. What is it? I suck at technology. I suck at accounting, right? What am I great at? I'm great at speaking. I'm great at big ideas. I'm great at seeing through the weeds to the outcome. So stay there and just do what you're great at. I had a doctor call me one time who was getting into a little real estate side hustle. And she said, Aaron, can you, and we'd become friends. And she called me and said, can you help me? I'm working on my bylaws and I'm kind of getting stuck. I said, you're working on writing bylaws? And she said, yeah. Don't I need bylaws for my corporation? I said, well, yeah, you do. But, there's boilerplate stuff for what you're doing. You don't need any specialized, you don't have investor money. You don't have any, it's just you flipping houses. There's boilerplate, for $100, I can send you a corporate record book with everything you need to be fully legal, fully set up, fully right. How much do you get an hour for being a doctor? And she's like, oh, $900 an hour or something. I said, how many hours have you spent on your bylaws? She goes, maybe 10. I've read all these things. I've been online. I've watched videos. I said, yeah, stop doing that.
Holy.
That's not what your superpower is. Stick to your superpowers. Don't do stuff that you suck at. As long as you fill your organization, I don't care what it is, whatever society. So this could be your family. If it's your family, who's good at what? Let them do what they're good at. What are they interested in? How do you let your kids become self-aware? You have to let them try stuff, even if you don't like it. Our middle son came to us when he was like 8 or 9 years old and he wanted to get a snake, a corn snake. And my wife was like, I don't want snakes in this house. And I was like, I don't really want snakes either. But I said, how's he ever going to know what he's interested in if we don't let him explore it? Well, what is he now? He has 2 careers right now. He makes music videos. He has a production company.
Wow.
And they've worked with people like Meghan Trainor, Post Malone, Jay-Z. He just called me yesterday. He's been invited to a thing in Atlanta. He's going to be working with an artist and he's going to meet the lawyer of the artist who represents Blake Shelton and Jason Aldean and all these other people. So he's got that career. And he also is a horse trainer, lives on a farm or on a ranch, 70 acres with a big thing. He's got 30 horses in the barn that he's working with. And he started out, he's 27 years old. He started out with a corn snake, right? So you have to let people develop.
Wow. Yeah.
Even when it's going to be awkward while you let them develop, while they make mistakes, while they shift from snakes to rabbits to horses to goats, and let people develop. And as long as you keep them within some kind of bright lines of keeping them on target within your organization, let them develop, let them make mistakes. Don't get mad at them when they make a mistake. Use it as a learning opportunity, learn it as a training opportunity. Oh, I know that I taught you to follow this process. You didn't. What was the result? Okay, so let me tell you why we have this process in the first place. But I'm not mad at you for trying something new, but here's why we did it the way we did it. Sometimes people come back to you and go, I did it a different way and I got a much better result. And if you're always mad at them because they don't follow your process, you may never learn the much better
Mm.
process. Because you didn't think of it doesn't mean it's the best thing. Just the fact that you have ideas as an owner doesn't mean your ideas are all that great. So surround yourself. I love the quote, surround yourself with people who play at the things you have to work at. Surround yourself with people who play at the things you have to work at.
Were you always a competent orator, or did that take time to learn, or and the mentorship and is
Both. I'm naturally comfortable speaking. I said I grew up in the Mormon church. Well, in the Mormon church, when you're 3 years old, you do these little talks, and usually your mom is standing behind you, maybe your mom or dad, and they're whispering in your ear sometimes. And you might have a little felt board or little popsicle stick puppets or something, and you tell a quick little Bible story or whatever, or teach a little principle as a 3, 4, 5-year-old. By the time you're 12, when you get to 12 years old, then they put you up in front of the congregation for what's called a 2.5-minute talk. And we were brought up on learning how to use stories, scriptures, and so on to speak for 2.5 minutes in front of a few hundred people.
wow.
And now some people hated it and some people loved it, right? And the ones who love it tend to do a better job of it. And the ones who do a better job of it get asked more often to do it. And you get better and better the more you practice something. And the more you get positive strokes for doing it, the more you want to be good at it, right? But then when I morphed from speaking at church to speaking, well, then also I was on the radio. I did interviews and stuff when I was in high school. We had the public radio station in Portland was at our high school, and I became chief of staff my junior and senior year. So I was interviewing people. We were doing things with National Public Radio. Doing national stuff, I had a magazine program. So I got good at interviewing and talking and reading. And, I met a lot of interesting people that were on TV and stuff when I was a high schooler. I got to an interview, and nobody listening now will probably care about this, but back in the 80s, it mattered. There was a guy who'd been famous in the 40s, 50s, and 60s named Red Skelton, who was a very famous comic and also an artist and a TV star and everything, made a lot of movies. But Red Skelton, I got to interview Red Skelton. I was one of like 10 people because of what we were doing at the high school radio station. I got to go be there with the 3 network affiliates in our city and with the biggest radio stations. There were like 10 or 12 of us that got to go and interview Red Skelton. And that's a very self-affirming experience.
Wow.
As a teenager, to go be there with all these people that are on TV or at the big, the high level radio stations, when radio was a big deal in 1981, when I did that interview, right? So I got to do all those things, and all those things build upon themselves. And then I had people like Les Brown who cared and gave me some ideas. And if you know who Les Brown is, a speaker, if you guys don't know, go look up Les Brown. You got to be hungry, and you guys can watch videos about Les Brown. Well, he's a friend of mine. He's doing he's done it before, and I've got a new book coming out, and he's writing an endorsement for the book, along with Brian Tracy, along with Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, along with the founder of Teladoc, $18 billion telemedicine business, along with the former CEO of Warner Brothers. They're all writing stuff for the book. Now, how do you meet all those people? Because you just keep showing up and doing what you're good at, and don't try to do things you suck at, and surround yourself with people and ask questions, and then go act on the things that the smarter people advised you on. And then they go, oh, he actually listened to what I said. I'll talk to him a second time. Right. How do you become good at anything? You keep doing it, and you keep seeking to do it better. You're not afraid to look at yourself in the mirror, watch video, listen to recordings, and go, I can't believe I did that. Or, oh, why am I doing that with my face or my hand? Or why do I keep pacing? Or why did I make that? I must have gotten nervous when I made that very thoughtless remark. I'll never do that again. Right? You have to be willing to see your ugly warts and all side in anything you're doing if you want to get better at it. And so
what's the premise of that new book?
Oh, it's finally this formula that I've been using for all these decades it's called Unshackled. The book is called Unshackled. And the original idea was I had done my stuff. I thought everybody did stuff the way I did it. I didn't know any better. Then I started getting hired by big companies to come talk to their leadership, their C-suite. I'm talking big companies, Max Factor, CoverGirl Max Factor, WebMD and Procter & Gamble and others. And I got to go in and talk to people in leadership, and I got paid to do it. And I always thought this is a waste of time, because there's no way in one day we can really affect significant change. So I created this course based on the same things I was doing in those meetings, and I called it the Unshackled Owner. And the idea was, how do you organize your business so that it can grow beyond you, so that you can know where you're going, set a clear outcome, build out the business on paper before you build it out in reality. Understand what are you great at, what do you suck at. Understand how to hire the right people and explain the exact outcomes you want from them so they know what they're signing up for. How to keep score. There's a great book called Traction that does a great job talking about keeping score. How to build an intentional culture, how to understand your financial statements, how to empower your management team. So you cannot step away, but step out of the way. Right? You're not quitting, you're just getting out of the way and letting people be great at what they're great at, and you be great at what you're great at. And sometimes that's leadership, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes the entrepreneur ought to stay as the CFO and should not be the president.
Why?
Because they're not good at it. You can be remember, owning shares, being an owner is different than being a board member, different than being an employee. And so you can be 100% owner, but that doesn't mean you should be the leader, because maybe you suck at being the leader. Maybe you're really good at one element, and that's gotten you to this point. But to really scale, you should not be the one that's managing all the other people. Maybe you don't have a gift for it, but you're really good at writing programs, code. You're really good at coming up with big ideas. You're really good at financial stuff. You're really good at operational stuff.
What are some ways to attract talented, long-term thinking operators of the businesses? So that would be that person that's, whether they're labeled as chief executive officer and they're an operating, they're an operating principal, or that's like, regardless of title, president, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah. How do you attract them?
Attract them, keep them,
Yeah.
and lever and burden maintain the power balance of being a chair and relative to like the.
So first of all, and I'm saying this because I want to reiterate how important this concept is in my whole way of looking at things, because I've already answered this question. I'm going to answer it again in the new context. Okay.
Please. Yeah.
The first thing is know what you're good at and what you suck at. The second thing is come up with an idea that actually has the chance of succeeding. May not succeed, but at least has a fighting chance. All right. And then surround yourself with people who play at the things that you work at. And remember, I said, hire the best people you can afford and then let them go do it. Don't bottleneck everything and have everything have to go back through you, because probably you suck at the thing they're good at. If you do everything based on outcomes, right? Here's our culture. Here's the values that we will drive every decision, right? And then here's the outcome. This is exclusively what we're working toward. Not all these rabbit trails, but here's the exact outcome. Here's the world-class problem and our world-class solution to the problem. See how I've said all these things already, but you put them into a box and say, this is what you do. And then you explain that vision to people, and the right people will go, I want to be on this journey with you. Do you know my two senior people, right? My business partner has been my 50-50 business partner since 1997.
Wow.
Our VP of operations has been with the company 34 years. Our VP of marketing has been with the company 25 years. I've got people in customer service, in the mailroom, in sales who've been with us 10, 15, 20 years or more. Some of those people make $20 an hour, $18 an hour. And they've been there for all this time. You know why? Because when they go to work, they get to have a say in what they do. They get to see that their ideas were acted upon and that they worked. They get acknowledged privately and publicly for their contribution. I'm a big fan of another kind of recognition, and I teach about this at length in the course, but let me share it right now. Because the course is my sideline. The course is not my main thing, right? I own all these businesses, but the course is my philosophy, right? The mechanics of how I do it. So I teach about another kind of recognition, and I'm sure it's not unique, but I'll explain it. So Jay, if you worked for me, I might walk into your office sometime unannounced. I see that you're free. I come in and I have I'm trying to find a prop here. I have an envelope in my hand. I come in, I say, hey, Jay. And I set the envelope down on the desk and I say, Jay, I just want you to know, I see what you do. I appreciate your attitude. You really make a difference here in this office, in this team. And I just want to say thank you. And I get up and walk out. I don't wait for you to open the envelope. I don't say, Jay, thanks for closing that big deal. Jay, thanks for solving that problem. Jay, thanks for being nice to the new kid. I don't say any of that. I say, I see you and I appreciate you and you make a difference here. And I just want to say thank you. And then I go away so that you don't have to go, oh, thank you, Aaron, for whatever whether it's a $5 Starbucks card or $1,000 in $100 bills. Whatever it is, you're going to open it and you're going to internalize it by yourself. Nobody else knows about it. I didn't do it in front of anybody. You didn't win the prize. This is just me saying, Jay, thanks for who you are around here. I appreciate you and I see what you do. And I want to say thank you and go away. That kind of recognition is the stuff people write in their journal. That's the kind of thing they go home and cry to their spouse because the birthday party that they couldn't afford, or whatever, or the frustration they were having about something else, all of a sudden somebody saw them, acknowledged them, thanked them. I must be doing okay. I must be all right. Look what my boss just did. Look at they just acknowledged me. Hey, honey, you want to go to the movie night? We have tickets to, Regal theaters. Let's go. Right? Oh, there's $500. There's $1,000. There's a handwritten note. I don't care what it is, but it's done in private and without attachment to any specific result that person got. It's just thanks for who you are. Thanks for who you are around here. I appreciate you. I see you and I appreciate it. Powerful.
It's profound.
Yeah.
Do you think if
one were
to attribute it to a thing that someone did, it'd be more of a commoditization of the relationship, or like some level of power?
It's like a commission or a spiff. Instead of it being you're generally additive to what we're doing here. You make a difference broadly, not just because you did that one thing.
Culture, baby.
Culture.
I mean, yeah, no one's ever said anything like that in the show. And that is, wow, that's a powerful.
Well, you said how do you keep good people over the long haul? You let them act in the position that you've assigned to them. You stretch, challenging, audacious, but reachable goals. You celebrate every success. I told somebody the other day, he told me, he was one of my mastermind students. And he wrote to me, he said, I'd been really stressed about money. I bought these 2 new rental properties. I really stretched to buy them. My wife, who's much more conservative than me, said, we don't have renters in it. It's been a couple of months. Nobody's rented them yet. And, do you need to go get a job or something? Like what? Because they had just moved. He'd sold a business. They have plenty of cash, but there was no new cash flow. And they'd taken some of their proceeds from selling a business and bought several pieces of real estate, like bought them, owned them. And he wrote to me, he said, I told my wife that those two places would be fully rented by the end of February. And he said, Aaron, February 28th, both of them became fully rented. And he said, isn't that a miracle? I said, well, it was intentional. You had a plan. You set a date. You did everything in your power to accomplish it. It happened. And I said, now it's critical that right now you're telling me, you're sharing with me on March 1st that you got this done.
Mm.
You need to celebrate. I said, sometimes on a little thing, I'll buy a nice pair of socks for $30. Sometimes I'll go buy my favorite snack at the convenience store. And sometimes I'll go buy something big, or I'll go on a big trip or whatever. I've got a, you can't see my watch box over there, but I have a very specific watch in there that I'd always wanted. I'd been a big stretch from before I was married, from when I was a teenager. Wow. And it's a Rolex GMT Master. And it was very specific, and I wanted one. And of course, over decades, they've improved. So I set a goal that I would buy one if I hit a certain sales number of that course, of the Unshackled course. If I hit $1 million, well, we'd hit $2 million in sales, and I hadn't bought the watch. My wife said, you set a goal and you didn't go do it. I said, well, part of the goal was somebody else would buy the watch for me. Not that I would go buy the watch. It would be a gift. And she goes, let's go get the watch. I'll buy the watch for you. It's important to celebrate. And I had not even done what I said I would do, because it seemed too much. Like it seemed irresponsible to buy another watch, right?
It's like we just ended on the beginning of the conversation. Well, Michelle could help you with that. It's funny. I resonate so much.
Well, my wife's an executive coach. She's really good at helping very successful people realize that they're really successful and how to be even more successful. She's gifted in that way.
Do you think, because this thought came to you when you were talking, you've said it numerous times about people that work for a company, that the entrepreneur creating a space where they can make their own decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You think entrepreneurs without realizing it stunt that because they don't have their own house in order? Because a resounding theme is like, you have your house in order, right? You and your life partner, your wife, so that's my question. Do you think that, like, part of the reason people stunt that is they don't have their house in order, so they're afraid, they're anxious, they're not paying attention, they can't even think themselves, so of course they're not going to let their employees think. Any thoughts you have around this?
I like what you're saying. I don't want to be harshly judgmental about where anybody else is on their life's path, but I will say this: the more you have confidence in yourself, and the less of a scarcity mindset you have, the quicker you will accomplish a lot. Here's the deal. It's very difficult to accomplish very much by yourself. It's very, very difficult to accomplish very much by yourself. You might make some money. You might get lucky. You might get into an investment sort of thing where you really kick butt and you make a lot of money. But to build something that goes on for decades and decades and that transcends you so that it feeds you instead of you constantly feeding it, it is required, as far as I can tell, that you have a whole bunch of gifted senior leaders, and then all the way down the chain to the most entry-level position. If there's a guy named Keith Cunningham who's written a bunch of great books. He's a really gifted guy. He speaks, although I've never seen him in this circumstance, he speaks at Tony Robbins' Business Mastery. Have you had him on the show?
Not yet. He's been on the list for a long time.
So Keith's a really cool guy. And Keith, and
by that I mean wish list. So no, I don't know him at all.
Yeah, I'm I started telling you who he was and I forgot why I was telling you this. Well, I'll come back. It'll come back to me. It was like enmity. It'll come back. The thing is, if you want to, oh, I know what it was. I know exactly what it was. He explains how important it is for people to really understand what the outcome is. And I love that. I think Keith and I gelled because we have a similar thing of define the outcome. Everything's around the outcome. It's not around me. It's not around my ego. It's around the outcome. And he explained that the more that you can engage somebody in seeing that they're part of the outcome in a visceral way, their clever idea, they're showing up today, they're making that one more phone call, they're smiling even when they felt bad, that when they are seen and rewarded for staying in the game, and they see that you trust them enough to try some of their ideas, or at least try their coworkers' ideas, or and do things like I described with gratitude. These are not all Keith Cunningham, but the idea that I remember I picked up from him was, he said, the whole goal is, he said, for money, we get people's arms and legs. The goal is to win their heads and hearts. And so the only way you're going to get somebody's great ideas and their heart is if they feel like they're actually recognized. They're not told to just go back and stay in your corner. That's not your area. There's a reason we do it the way we do it. Don't start messing with stuff. If you do that, you discourage anybody from sharing their ideas. And I'll say we have multi-million-dollar channels in our business that came to us from various employees who had an idea, and we examined the idea and we executed on the idea and we've iterated on the idea, and it's become valuable. And there's some ideas that are not such great ideas. And there's some ideas that are a good idea, but they're naive ideas. So they don't understand the whole process, but they're still thinking. You still go, you know what? Super cool idea. Let me show you what we're trying to do. And you tell me how your idea would fit into that. Because I love what you're saying. I love how you're thinking. Here's the big picture. Explain to me how this part can be woven in. And usually if you give them a chance to think something through, will go like this, or maybe it's not the right time, or maybe this isn't, maybe I was a little off. But the point is, if you go no, or don't even come to me with this silly stuff, I'm busy running this whole company. If you do that, you won't get the collaboration, you won't get the trust, you won't get the longevity. My goal is that people are A, doing what is expected of them, B, showing us how they're going to do what's expected of them in a way that fits their superpowers, right? You have this outcome. How will you do it versus the person next to you? Because you have different skills. You have different life experience. You have different time on the job. You have different talent. Maybe one of you is a speaker, one of you is a writer. How are you going to accomplish it? You tell me. We call massively important outcomes. What every week, every employee sets 3 or 4 massively important outcomes. Out of the hundreds of things they'll do this week, these 3 or 4 things are what they perceive to be the most critical in moving us toward our quarterly goals. So these are the things I'm going to do this week that I can do myself that will move the ball down the field. See, if I just tell them all the time what to do, I'm going to miss out on things that might be much better solutions. But if I say, here's the outcome, Jay, what are you going to tell me your MEOs for the week? What are your massively important outcomes? And then they tell me. And then next week we say, okay, here were your MEOs. Yes or no? Did you do it or didn't do it? Yes, yes, no, yes. Okay, good job. What happened on the no? If somebody gets a yes every single time, I start going, are these real goals or are these things that were going to happen anyway? If somebody sets a goal every time they never hit them, I'm like, are these too audacious? Do you not care? Like, that gives me a chance to talk to them privately, or their boss to talk to them privately and say, hey, what's going on? I'm noticing week after week, this is the experience. That gives us just the fact that they set a goal for an outcome, not a goal, an intention. I will get this done. a commitment, a verbal contract, and they did or didn't do it, if I watch that over a span of some time, a month, a quarter, a year, I start to learn about the person a lot, and we can start having individual conversation with that person, their boss can, and go, what's going on? And we also have a belief, well, we have a practice in our business that anybody in the company can come to my partner and I, or the two owners. Lee and I have been partners for, I told you, since 97. That's a long time, 25 years right now, going on 26. Yeah, this fall, it'll be 26 years.
Wow.
And you know, we've never had a fight all those years. We're 50-50 partners. We've never argued, never one time. You can believe it or not believe it, listeners. I'm telling you, it's true. And you know why? Because we both respect the other one. We're not social friends, even though we like each other. We've been out to dinner a few times. We did take our families on a cruise one time, and we realized we're not ideally suited to be social friends, but we're great business partners. And he's operations and finance, and I'm marketing and sales. And he's the president and I'm the chairman. And it works. We have a practice in our company that we allow people to operate we hire the best people we can. We allow them to function without slowing them down. And if we don't understand what they're doing, first of all, there's no problem for breaking something. If you make a mistake, as long as it wasn't, ill-intended, it's okay. It's okay to try something and have it fail. It's totally fine. I'm sure you've heard that a million times on this program. People need the flexibility to try stuff. I try and fail all the time. Richard Branson's tried and failed. Elon Musk tried and failed. Why shouldn't the employees be able to try and fail? Because eventually we sort out better solutions. And that everybody feels better about that. When they had a voice, they had a say, they were able to say, this week, in order to hit the goal that all of my coworkers that I have, this is what I'm going to do. And oh, by the way, I did it. And look what happened. And they get to be entrepreneurs. They get to be part of the solution. They get to
You think
see
that's going to become more
effort.
and more important as
I think it's always been important, but it has, when we looked at enterprise level businesses and then small companies modeled those, it was very factory oriented, very, very hierarchical. We immediately came and flattened the company. There's the leader, there's the VPs, there's everybody else. There's no managers on managers. We're not that big of a company, about 40 people, but anybody in the whole company, anybody can skip their boss and come to me or Lee with a problem. They don't have to go through channels. And you know what that does? It keeps their boss honest as well. One of the first things we did years ago, and we continue to remind people, is if you would like to see the profit and loss statement, if you'd like to understand how to read a balance sheet, I'll show you. Come on, I'll show you the P&L. How many employers do that? I mean, people don't want to be scared. In a vacuum of information, they'll fill it with negative stuff. So the best thing I can do is say, I've got nothing to hide. I will teach you how to do this. Guess what? Almost nobody ever wants to do it. But once in a while, somebody does. And the fact that they asked and we did it, that we did what we said we would do, instills confidence. It ripples out through the whole group. Somebody can be great at a job, but be a crappy team member. They can be gossipy, backbitey, mean, yell, swear, throw things, whatever. I don't care how successful they are at the job. You fire that person because they become a cancer in the whole organization. But a lot of times people get away with it because they're delivering a lot of value, and I'm like, nope, you got to go.
Have you always been able to do that, or is that something you had to learn the hard way? Ask that person to leave.
Well, I understand the question. I think it's something I've always done because you can tell. The nice thing about starting small is that you're super closely involved with all the people, right? And so you can tell pretty quickly if somebody's a good fit or not. And I have a big belief in so this is one of the things, it's, again, this is another part of my formula. It's retrain, reposition, replace. So if something's not working, first I have to look at me or the leader and say, did we do a good job explaining to this person what the job is? And then did we train them sufficiently to be successful? Did we create circumstances where they can actually succeed? So that's, I have to look at it, and if need be, retrain the individual, their line authority, you know, their leader. I have to look at, you know, where did we fail the individual first thing? So we'll go back and maybe I should be reevaluate, retrain. But the point is, first thing we have to look and go, did we do a good job? And let's go back over it and let's retrain. If it's still not working, then, well, there was a reason we hired this person in the first place. Is there another place they would be a better fit? Right? Is there, because we already like them. There was a reason we brought them in. So is there another way where they can be successful that wasn't maybe the intended place? And if not, then you replace them. Then you let them go and go, okay, this didn't work. We tried.
Do you think that reposition piece is important so it doesn't become like the gulag?
I think two things are important. One is, if you bring somebody on if you bring them into your team and you invest money in them and you invest time in them and they take a risk on you, if you're doing a good job of hiring, they should not only be good on a resume, they should be a good cultural fit. They should be a great values fit. And if they are a great cultural, great values fit, if they have aptitude and they have willingness, then they can probably be put in lots of positions and become successful, right? If they're willing and able to learn something new, then if they're a culture fit and they just didn't fit in the one job, that doesn't mean you throw them out. And likewise, the alternative to that is, or the opposite of that is, flip side is, they can be very good at the job and suck at the culture. And if they're not a good cultural fit, you have less time to bring them into the culture than you do in bring them into the aptitude, right? Because they can hurt the culture much more quickly than they can mess up your sales department or your marketing department or your finance department. And people that are a cancer inside the culture have got to go quickly. You can give them a chance. I think it's incumbent on the leader to explain to them what the problem is. Here's what I'm noticing. Here's who we are. Here's how we function here. And I'm asking you to do these things. I mean, I have a story about that. There was a lady that I'd heard from one employee that this other lady was really being mean, just kind of being a jerk around the office. Little comments, inviting 2 or 3 other people out to lunch, but not her. Just being kind of, I don't care if my employees are best friends, but I would like them to be at least polite, right? And thoughtful. So anyway, this was back when I used to meet with all the employees once a year and do a review. I haven't done it for about 5 years. I've only been to the office one time in the last 5 years. But I used to go in at least at Christmas time to do the annual review and give them their Christmas bonus. That was kind of one of the rare times they would see me in the office. Whereas my partner is there every month, a couple times a month for, days or a week or whatever. He's in there. We both live in other states. But anyway, so I went in, I was sitting with this lady. I said, first of all, I want to give you this envelope, which is your bonus because you've significantly exceeded all your bonus levels. You've just kicked butt. You've done a terrific job in your position. Thank you. Well done. Here's your financial reward. Here's your Christmas bonus from the company that everybody gets. And now I want to talk to you about something. It's been reported to me that this thing's been going on. And by the way, as I've talked, and I had talked to several people in these interviews, and when I say what else is going on that I should know about, and this woman had come up several times. So it's been reported to me that this, and she goes, did so-and-so say that to you? the one I had reported.
Sure. Yeah.
I said, well, I haven't even talked to her yet today. So that's interesting to me that you went there, because the people I'm telling you about are not the person you just called out. So this must be a broader issue than I realized. But it is an issue that hurts the company. And so here's what I'm saying. As grateful as I am for your very successful work doing your job, I'm putting you on notice now. If I ever hear from anyone of this behavior being repeated by you, I'm not going to tell them, I'm not going to arm them with this. I'm telling you. By the way, by then I'd already said, what's going on? How are you feeling? How do you like your job? She told me about some family related issues. She told me all the problems. She cried. She was, and she was a middle manager, further up the chain, successful lady. I know I just talked about flattening things, but we still have managers of departments, right?
Sure.
She had a successful career, but she got, real raw and vulnerable. We talked anyway. And I said, okay, cool. I appreciate that. Here's what I need from you. Here's what the company needs from you. Here's what I expect. If I ever hear of that behavior again, I said, I don't hire and fire. I don't hire and fire anybody in the company. Okay. The president does that, or the managers do that. I don't do it. I said, if I ever hear of this, even a whisper of this comes back to me in one of our meetings, I will be here personally to watch you pack up your desk and leave. And, she went about 2 years, no problems. And then I got a report and I flew down and I terminated her. And everybody knew it. Everybody saw it happen. But I did the same thing with the CFO that we had inherited when we bought this company. And he'd been, not groping or anything, but kind of sexually harassing people, making comments, leaning over their shoulders, putting hands on their shoulders, closing the door in meetings. And we had one of our VPs and then 2 of his employees. They got on a conference call. They very nervously explained all this to my partner and I. And then we very quietly booked airplane tickets that afternoon, flew down that night. We're there at 7 a.m. When that guy walked in, we said, "You're terminated." He said, "What are you talking about? I've been here all these years." I said, "He's CFO." I said, "Yeah, we don't have to explain why." We just said, "Well, you're not a culture fit. And we're here early so you can pack up and don't have to do this in front of everybody. Here's your check."
If you or anyone, wasn't able to do that emotionally, psychologically, for whatever reason, what do you think could have, what do you think could have happened?
If I wasn't able to do it?
Yeah. And I asked that
We would
because
have
I
lost
see
a
that
whole
every
bunch of
day.
good people.
So yeah,
Yeah.
if you weren't
We would have
able to
lost
do
a bunch
that-
of good people. We would have lost a bunch of good people because of secrets that were being kept based on a power struggle.
we'd be right in the shackled business owner.
Yeah, that's right. And so if we get the right
What a
people,
profound story.
they know where to go. They know the outcome they need. They understand their bright lines to stay within, and within those bright lines can fully explore how to do a great job, to get acknowledged. Everybody knows what we're here doing, what we stand for, and what we stand against. If you do all those things, culture is the glue. I say this in the class. I say, look, I can teach you all the mechanical things to do to become unshackled, but culture is the glue that holds it together. Culture is what is infused through everything that's going on, so that when the owner or the founder isn't there, people still know this is how we do things here. This is how we treat one another here. We would never do that. We would always do that, because that's part of the culture, and the culture will only be adopted by the team if it is taken seriously by the leadership, and if it also supports the individual to feel safe and heard and seen and valued and acknowledged. That's the only way.
Aaron, my last call to action, it really is, how can people invest into this courses, follow you,
Oh,
get more information. I think at this point of all the value you've given, what's the next step here?
well, if anybody that's listening goes, "Oh, I'd like to know more," I mean, I would love that, of course. This was never intended to be a sales pitch today. This was just talking about how critical culture is and how we need to be intentional in the things that we do if we want to be consistently successful. Or if we are being consistently unsuccessful, we have to reevaluate what we're doing consistently that's failing. If they want to get a hold of me, they can do several things. You can just write to me, Aaron Young at laughlinusa.com. So Laughlin is LAUGHLIN, like laughlinusa.com. So they can write to me, Aaron Young at laughlinusa.com. They can go to aaronscottyoung.com and they can, there's a bunch of episodes of the podcast, probably all the episodes of the podcast there. If they click on programs, they can enroll in the Unshackled program. We do it once a quarter. I teach it over Zoom. It's one of the only things that I have shackled myself to, because people have said to me over and over again, we could have somebody else teach the class. I said, yeah, they could teach the class, but they couldn't answer the questions at the end. Because I can teach a lot of people to parrot me, but that doesn't mean they have 40 years of running company and employing people. We've had a payroll for almost 40 years, right? So you can't put somebody who's just a good public speaker in there and have them be effective at answering complex questions in different industries. So they can go to Aaron Scott Young and do that. And if they're interested in any of the other business stuff we do, just like my email, they can go to laughlinusa.com and poke around and see if there's anything there. There's so many more things like we could have talked about, but today we're talking about culture. And the culture is the key. I'm so glad that you're out here doing this. I'm glad that there are programs and that this is clearly an outstanding program to say, yeah, ideas are great. Education is great. Technology is great. Software is great. But without a good, solid culture, you will struggle to build a cohesive team that will trust each other enough to actually go somewhere with the business. If you have a good culture, you can be as successful as you're willing to dream. And without a good culture, it doesn't matter how big your dreams are, you won't succeed.
Aaron Scott Young, thank you for agreeing to do this podcast. And I hope this is not the last time that we have you on the show. Thank you all for listening to this. If you have an interest in Aaron, I implore you to follow him more and maybe re-listen to this a couple times. And we will see you all on the next episode of the Culture Matters podcast.